Reading from Mad in America, a journal of science, psychiatry, and social justice, I found an article that says, Therapists, neutrality is no longer an option. Politics is tearing us apart. And Sylvie Saxana makes the case that we should be more political in our therapy appointments. Let's get into it. If you know anything about therapy or therapists in general, we are supposed to remain neutral, especially when it comes to politics, because we want to treat and serve the people based on what their needs are, not what their political affiliation is. And if they want to choose to believe one thing or the other, I can try to direct them to what's true, but I am not supposed to tell them how to vote, or in this case, as Sylvie makes the case, how to beat back the oppression of the systems and the extensive systemic racism that is involved, and systemic sexism and systemic problems within America. Sylvie makes the case that we're supposed to be more political in our appointments, and to be quite frank, at the end of the day, I agree with her. That doesn't mean that I'm going to tell people that they should be conservative, but I want to identify exactly the type of misappropriation of the therapeutic relationship that this could be. Sylvie makes the case that, oh gosh, there's so much here. It's a really long article, but here's what she says very specifically about how people are divorcing themselves from each other for political reasons. She says, I've seen marriages strained or collapse entirely over what used to be just political differences, but these days political values are tied to core moral beliefs about race, gender, freedom, safety, bodily autonomy, and truth. What was once dismissed as a difference of opinion is now a chasm of reality. Often one partner upholds values shaped by justice, empathy, and collective care, while the other clings to traditionalist, individualist ideas. Now, you tell me that you want your clients to be Democrat without telling me that you want them to be Democrat. She frames probably the female in this case, in a marriage who's having problems, she frames that one partner as being shaped by justice, empathy, collective care, and the other one clings to traditionalist, individualist ideas. By the way, Sylvie, the whole reason why you're sitting in a society where you can write articles disparaging traditionalist and individualist ideas is because people who were traditional and individualist built this country and created the freedoms out of God-ordained freedoms being given to each of us. We created this society based on the fact that we upheld the traditions, which, by the way, traditions being, again, solutions to problems we forgot we had. So if you would like to complain about the ideas that built this country, it is those ideas that, in fact, offer you the freedoms to sit on a computer and complain about the traditions. She says that she's seen clients where the adults and children are going no contact, which I've covered on this channel before, but I think that it's really important to see what the therapy culture is saying about this phenomenon. Kids going no contact with their parents for political reasons. She says adult children are going no contact from parents who repeat conspiracy theories, downplay racism, or vote for policies that harm marginalized communities. Then they blame their children for being too sensitive. These are not random interpersonal dynamics, they are political wounds. She harbors this terminology of saying that politics is hurtful, it's violence. She uses the term political violence several times in here. She says when a queer client is told by their father that they're going to hell, that's not just a family issue, it's a product of a society that still sanctions that kind of hate under the guise of religious freedom. There is absolutely no one on God's earth who supports anyone on the side of saying that their child is going to hell for almost any reason, but especially not for religious reasons. Sylvie has a little bit of a misappropriation of who's actually got cultural hegemony in our country, because the battle for hegemonic power has truly been won by the left, especially in the institution of therapeutic industries. So she's fighting a ghost and raging against a machine that is no longer the cultural dominator. She says we're also witnessing a silent epidemic of friendship losses. I agree. And most of those, I would say, are unjustified. I've had a great many clients that are divorcing themselves from their friends and support groups for political reasons, which I think is an absolute travesty and a farce. And if Sylvie believes that we, in fact, need to atomize our culture more and separate further and further away from ourselves, she might want to check the statistics on how mentally ill people become when they are isolated. And this internet era, although it was supposed to connect us, remember Facebook in 2004? It was supposed to connect us, and now we're getting further and further apart. And Sylvie wants to continue to push that fracturing further. She says one person can no longer tolerate being around someone who denies their humanity. So she's probably saying the trans, not using the right pronouns, am I right? Who denies their humanity, votes against their rights, okay? Listen, a vote is not an act of violence against you. There is no democracy on earth where my vote is actually an act that's intolerable or a divisive. I have the right to vote, just like Sylvie does, and mine will most assuredly cancel hers out, although she lives in Pennsylvania. This is survival, she says. And therapists who encourage clients to repair the ruptures in their relationships without acknowledging the political stakes are involved in pathologizing healthy boundaries. So she's saying the healthy boundary is to just go dark, go no contact. It'll be better for you because your real tribe is who's on Reddit and who's on Blue Sky and Threads, and you just need to go there because those are the real people who have empathy. Not like these people who vote right wing. They certainly aren't worthy of a relationship with you because they vote against your interests, supposedly. Sylvie also said what's unspoken about these relationship breakdowns is an emotional toll on everyone, not just those who are directly harmed. Who's being directly harmed by my vote? Even those who benefit from the status quo suffer. So she's talking about Thanksgiving and how that's a harm to everyone because you can't tolerate being around the people that birthed you or are your biological family for 3 hours a year. She says polarization doesn't just tear families apart, it tears apart the fabric of social trust. No kidding. And then you're going to tell people to go dark and further no contact, and then you're complaining about the social trust being torn down. The left did this to us, bro. We did not want to have an uncivil society based on these political boundaries, and now you're saying that is the only way that you're going to make it through into the next phase of whatever this America is supposed to look like. You're encouraging people to break down the social fabric, and then you're complaining about it. She says, here's where it gets to the therapy part, right? Too many therapists still try to reframe these breakdowns as communication issues, generational differences, and unresolved attachment. While those frameworks can be useful, they're insufficient when divorced from context. A white client breaking down over a fractured relationship with a black partner must understand the dynamics of privilege and power. So you're the bad guy automatically because of an immutable characteristic, your skin color. If you're of the who she would say is the oppressive class, which is of course a Marxist frame. So she wants therapists, she's encouraging therapists to take Marxism further into account and to try to press that ideological frame into therapeutic relationships, which, by the way, the APA, along with all the other institutions in the therapeutic industry, already frame everything through a Marxist lens. So you're, again, raging against the very machine that your people built from a psychology perspective. She says she doesn't presume political alignment, so she does treat conservatives when they come into her office. And here's where it gets good, okay? Therapy is not about indoctrination, it is about liberation. And liberation requires honesty. It requires naming reality. It requires expanding our understanding of trauma beyond personal history and structural context. So she's saying that the framing of reality that the Marxists and a great many therapists take into their worldview is the one in which you can change your biological markers in which you can claim that you are a person who just is minor attracted, and where you can, see structural racism and systemic problems in every single thing that's oppressing you and oppressing people that are of the lower caste system that they've set up here. This is ultimately the reality she's asking you to accept. And not only that, but you should take it into your therapeutic sessions, because that's the only way that you can be helped, is if you see it through a Marxist lens. If you see your reality and your personal problem, how you're dealing with anxiety, if you're not framing it through Marxism, then you're just not getting better, guys. She says, if you can describe the hurt but not who hurt you, especially if it's the government or the culture or capitalism itself. So now she's externalizing the problem. Yes, you have anxiety, but it's probably not because of anything you did or said. It's because the systems of the government, the culture, and capitalism have been set up to hurt you. And she actually names capitalism itself here. So ultimately, we know communism is the alternative that she's trying to explore. She says it's pacifying people if you don't take capitalism into account. You're pacifying them. So she says Western therapy upholds the individual above the collective. It pathologizes resistance. It tells people to regulate their emotions before asking them whether their emotions are appropriate. Here's the problem, Sylvie, and God love you. I hope this gets through to you at some level. If you want to say that decolonizing therapy is what's necessary, I could certainly take that from a conservative frame and rewrite it to fit my own narrative. So while you want to decolonize therapy and make, all of your appointments about the evils of capitalism when your clients bring it up, according to you, then I could do the same thing and just, I'm the anti-Marxist counselor now. I'm the anti-this or anti-that counselor, whatever left-wing ideological, I'm the anti-Gaza counselor. And if people aren't taking, the Gaza-Israeli war into account when they seek therapy, I'm going to make sure they do. I'm just kidding. I don't care. I do care. People are suffering, but, I don't take a stand on that, and it's not necessary to enter into therapy. She says training programs need to treat structural racism, capitalism, transphobia, and the state of violence not as electives, but as core curriculum. So the core curriculum of therapy training should include how we're structurally racist, how capitalism is evil, how transphobia is inherent in everything, and how state violence is real. I do see the state committing violence, but ultimately that's because they're trying to promote order. And we can do this exactly in reverse. I can take conservative values and press it into each one of these therapeutic relationships, although I will not do that. And then I'll just say, Sylvie, it's the same difference in reverse. You want left-wing ideology to be inherent in therapeutic practices. I'm just going to say I want right-wing ideology to be in it, although then therapy probably wouldn't exist, because I'd tell people to go, eat beef, eat steak, run through open fields, lift weights, have a lot of children, and live in the sunshine and do hard work with your hands. And then they wouldn't need a therapist. So I guess the right-wing version of this doesn't even work, because it would promote a lifestyle that would have inherent well-being in it and the actual neurochemical reward of doing real things in real life, instead of just complaining about stuff on the internet, which I obviously do that too. Sylvie says in the last couple paragraphs here, we don't need neutrality in therapy, she means. We need courage. We need therapists willing to take the risk of being misunderstood in order to truly be present. We need clinicians who understand that real risk isn't speaking up, it's staying silent while injustice becomes normalized. Here's the plea to her fellow therapists. Stop playing it neutral. Stop using scope of practice to avoid hard conversations. Stop minimizing the trauma to keep your comfort intact. Your clients don't need you to save them. They need you to stand with them, to save them, believe them, and name the truth with them. Because in times like these, silence isn't therapeutic, it's betrayal. You won't be surprised that Sylvie's credentials is that she's a master social worker, a licensed social worker, and a clinical medical social worker. So, like I've said previously, social work education is just socialism education, and Sylvie here takes the cake. I am grateful that I don't bring my right-wing politics into therapeutic sessions, but if someone asks me to try to orate or to try to verbalize what is true, I will not hold back from telling them that I believe God created order and that there's a natural law and that there is a spirit realm that's influencing their mental health. But I don't say that unless the invitation is open, and I would I would try to help and admonish Sylvie to do the same, because that's what ethical practice looks like. And while you want me to just claim the Marxist bona fides all throughout all of my sessions, I'm going to stick to trying to tell the truth.